where the fun begins.
Hello! We begin tonight's meeting of the Council by calling the Council to order. Hello to everyone, and thanks for joining us. The Council is a live Twitch talk show and podcast discussing Star Wars: The Old Republic. I am Elise, and with me are my fellow Council members, Sakari.
Hey, everybody.
Magic Ace.
Hello.
New Daddy Redna.
Hi.
It was supposed to be Noob Daddy Redna.
She doesn't know how to
He's
say
not really
noob.
a noob.
A noob.
He's new. Noob means
Yeah, so I put
bad or inexperienced.
in the show notes.
New.
In the show notes, I put an NEWB because I felt bad calling him an NOOB. So anyway, New Daddy is fine. We'll be nice to Redna tonight.
As long as it's not an NUB, because that means a non-usable body, in which case that's just utter failure. So.
All right. Well, how's it going, Redna? In your new role. How's
Yes, so I'm a new dad, and anybody that watches my stream should be aware that I refer to my wife as Gigi, which has many, many meanings, like gamer girl, ghost girl, genius girl. Well, now I've got BG because I got baby gamer. Very, very, very happy.
Very cool.
Very, very, very tired, and I'm feeling old.
It will do that to you, that's for sure.
Yep.
So, Elise, what is our topic
We're
tonight?
going to be talking about stereotypes in gaming.
Woohoo!
Very cool.
Woohoo!
Yes.
Where's the Fat Man graphic? I want to see the Fat Man graphic.
Oh, the Fat Man
No,
graphic was on the
There
screen.
it is.
All right, so in case anybody has been wondering what on earth is up with our layout tonight, we have a guest joining us. Tonight we are joined with basically our first guest we've ever had on the show. Those of you who listen to UtiniCast will be familiar with one of their more frequent guests. That is Dr. SWTOR on Twitter, formerly as Infinite Outcome. Now he goes by the designation Dr. SWTOR because, my goodness, he has earned it. So welcome, Dr. SWTOR.
All right, yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, we put you right in the middle because that way you'll be surrounded by our councilness.
And
Right.
it had nothing to do with the fact that we have nameplates and we like corners. Nothing. to do with
Where do
that.
we
It's
put
just-
him?
We want you surrounded, that's all.
That's
Or
fine.
that we want any references to the Brady Bunch or anything like that.
I
either.
wasn't going to go there, but you know.
There is-
Well,
I had to.
I just have one question for the doctor. What's up, doc?
Gosh.
There, I just want
Wow,
to say,
Redna.
looking at our setup, there is a 0% chance I'm going to master looking at the correct face while I talk. It's not
I
happening.
always just look up when I'm joking about Sakari. I'm like, oh,
I think that's because you're rolling your eyes.
it works perfectly.
I think the only one of us that has actually tried looking around the frame set when they're speaking is Redna. I think
You
Redna,
noticed?
you tried it once.
Magic
like-
Hubby notices. He always giggles.
Oh my goodness. Well, tell
Well,
Magic Case.
now it's just easy. I just look to God. I mean, Elise, and things are good.
That's right.
She's like, please, call
It's
me,
a good.
please.
It's good.
Mm.
It's a good move.
So the good news is once we've got done trying to figure out who's where on this, you can always find us everywhere podcasts are found. And after this live recording, you can find our episodes on our social media. You can find us on Twitch. You can find us on facebook.com/councilsotor. We also have Twitter, which is at thecouncilsotor.com. Whenever I get a hold of it, we have really awesome memes and GIFs, but they don't let me have it often. And then you can also find our Patreon page, which all of our episodes are on Patreon, which is patreon.com/councilsotor. And don't forget to Google us or whatever engine you happen to use, but I just use Google. So that's not sponsored, FYI.
Not sponsored. We need to get them to sponsor us. Let's see if that's possible.
God, that
I
would
will
be cool.
get on that.
So, okay, what we would ordinarily do this time is do an icebreaker to something to kind of get the discussion started, as if we're having any kind of trouble with that tonight. Welcome, by the way, to everybody. I see that our numbers jumped, so people are filtering in because I think everyone's excited to hear what Dr. SWTOR has to say to our subject tonight, which is we're going to get into here in a second. As Elise mentioned, it is basically stereotypes in gaming. We'll talk about some of the more common ones that are out there, and who better, who has done more research in SWTOR and gaming, and would be able to speak to these stereotypes than Dr. SWTOR. So, with all of that said, Dr. SWTOR, if you'd like to tell us a little bit, just kind of, because I know our audience is a little bit different to Utinicast, I suppose. What is your profession? How did you get into it? What all did you do to get there? Kind of give us the lay of the land.
All right. So right now, what I am is I'm a graduate school professor, and I teach master's and doctorate level counseling. And when I'm not teaching, I'm a licensed mental health counselor, and I am a passionate SWTOR player. So I started work on my doctorate program in 2011, and at the end of my first semester, we all know what happened to change our world. SWTOR went live in December, and I had just wrapped up a probably 43-page term paper about MMORPGs and psychology, never having played an MMORPG beyond the 2 days that I spent seeing if I would like Lord of the Rings online. And so I wouldn't say that I was an MMO player at all at that point in time. In fact, during 2012, I wouldn't say I was really an MMO player. I was just playing my Madness Sorcerer. I didn't understand how to go to Fleet and get into a group and actually beat a Flashpoint. And so I was just progressing through the doc program, and every major assignment that I could allocate to understanding the psychology of video games, every presentation opportunity I would have, I would just kind of spin the targeted topic into let's learn more about MMORPGs. And then that led to 2016, where I got to start working on dissertation research. I met Chill and Tio on Utinicast, and within minutes of me just saying like, hey, this is what I want to do, can you help? They started having a Twitter message chat with me, and it just started going. July that year, I got about 690 people to answer at least some questions. The total sample of people I could use, meaning they started it and finished it, was 503 people.
I was one, yeah.
Yeah, and so anyone who understands stats, when you have a population that is larger than 1 million people doing the same thing, you want to have more than 400 people in your data set, because of being able to say at certain levels that these are not flawed sets of data. So I was able to do that in 33 days from July 1st to August 3rd, and then by November I completed writing my the last 140 pages of a 270-page dissertation and became Dr. SWTOR.
You know it was well more than that, though. You probably had to pare it down, I'll bet.
Oh my gosh, there was a day in September where I turned in a draft. My dissertation chair looked at it and said, you did not say in chapter 3 that you were going to do all of these charts and look at these specific sets of variables, so you can cut that out. So in my OneDrive box, where I have all the relics of destroyed dissertation chapters, there's a special edition of my dissertation that has all the things I originally intended to put in the cut that I originally released.
It's like dissertation 2, the second edition.
Yeah. So it's like there's all these charts and pie graphs and bar graphs that, none of the tables in my actual published dissertation are visual. They're all rows of numbers. So one day in 20 years I can do like Star Wars with 97 and add Jabba the Hutt in and add 20 Greedos to my dissertation and make Han not shoot first. And
you are going to poke the hornet's nest there, aren't you?
Oh, well,
keep going.
There's
I can just feel the fanboys boiling.
I hope they do. I'm here to answer all their questions. No, but I'm not going to ruin the spirit of any of the stats that I've already published.
But so you're sitting on this massive data set, right? Like all of the good, juicy SWTOR stats that BioWare doesn't even know are out there. I bet you have.
I wanted so bad for them to just be a part of what I was doing, but they can't because it wasn't officially sponsored by them. And I understand that. There's lots of considerations there. Just to get the official Myers-Briggs type indicator to be a part of my study, I had to do, I had to jump through the hoops and work with them. So adding BioWare to the kind of hoops I was jumping through probably would have been a nightmare for me.
But you don't have a secret subset of dev responses?
No, I mean, I reached out to Musco back before, like around the time I was talking to TeenyCast, and we had a nice back and forth one morning, and then I guess I'm just like, do not talk with Dr. SWTOR. I'm on that list.
They blacklisted you. Like, this guy's dangerous.
I don't think it's malicious at all. I think there's probably
it's defensive. Don't let him get in your head.
He's gonna tell our secrets.
They're like, doctor, decline.
Yeah.
So I think that they have NDAs that they're not allowed to talk to unless it's officially sanctioned by BioWare and EA.
But the cool thing, if you remember that like 500 feet tall infographic that you had to scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll, and it was like summing up everything that was like Dark Verse Light 4.0's over. This is our player base. Mm-hmm. It's really neat to see the stats that I got from my 500 people and line it up with that infographic.
How cool is that?
Yeah, it's really cool because they're saying like this percentage of people have made bounty hunters, and it's pretty close. So, they released that around the time that I was, just in my computer monitors doing this, and so that was a nice little validation for me that I didn't screw something up massively.
Right. Okay, so now you mentioned the Myers-Briggs type indicator. Can you give us like a very super quick, super broad, here's what this is and here's how that factors in?
Sure. So the Myers-Briggs type indicator is one type of psychological instrument that identifies our personality as individuals. And there's different ways to do this that use different kinds of types or different kinds of traits. So the Myers-Briggs is not the only thing that people can use, but some of your listeners may have gone online one time or another and found this grid that goes 4x4 with squares, and it puts different fictional characters and a little summary of what people are like. So for the Star Wars one, it has, like this type is Darth Vader and this type is the Emperor. And by the way, the INTJ type is known as the mastermind. And in that particular version of the Myers-Briggs chart...
Say it.
Yeah, it's INTJ. And in 2011, when I was just beginning... Like, the idea that would become my dissertation... Right. My first...
It's my time.
Sorry, I had to get that out there.
My first character I ever created was a Sith sorcerer. When I was in the character creation screen, I made him look as close to me as I could. This character... I had all the avatar psychology going on in my mind. And then I looked at the chart and it's like, oh, well, the only character on this grid that shoots lightning out of their fingers is your personality type. I was like, oh my gosh, what if this happens for other people? So, maybe it doesn't connect to that degree. Like, I'm sure there's a lot of people who have the Uncle Owen personality type who don't just walk around and do nothing on Tatooine and SWTOR. But my point is, right? Okay, moisture farm. I guess
I have a family member that's a Jar Jar type. What would that be?
That sounds controversial. If I were to,
can we get your comments, please?
Yeah, are you gonna keep poking that nest? Go on. Here's a stick. Go for it.
I didn't make a Qui-Gon, or whatever.
What was that, Elise? I'm sorry.
Fine.
All right.
I did not make one of those.
Let me throw this in there real quick.
I feel good about that.
I put into chat what we're talking about right now. So there's a link in chat. Those of you who want to go visit it can. It's the grid of the 16 different personality types of the Myers-Briggs and what we're talking about, who, Lars Owen is and who Jar Jar is. And I don't know Jar Jar's on this. But anyway, it's taken commonly known characters.
SFJ. I don't know what that means, but...
But it's taken commonly known characters and kind of has assigned them their type, so...
Yeah, so the way that works is you have people who are introverted or extroverted. And so in SWTOR, the player base is predominantly introverted. That doesn't mean that when we're playing the game, we have trouble talking with each other, though. Introverts communicate with people just like extroverts. Well, not the same, but they do. For example, I'm very extroverted. My scores are pretty far down that continuum, but my whole job is communicating and talking to people. And if you get me talking about this stuff, I won't shut up. I'll keep going forever. So
when we get to the end of the episode, then I'm going to say thank you, and that's a wrap. Is that what we're going to do?
Yeah. So then after that, you have that letter. So if you'll notice on that chart, every single type starts with either an I or an E. And then the next one is an N or an S. And so that's whether you get your information going into your mind through your senses or through your thought process. And then the third letter is a T or an F. That's thinking or feeling. So do you make your decisions based on the feeling you have inside or based on your logical thought about what will happen when this decision is made? And then the last letter is either a J or a P, which is, do you like to plan things out, or do you function just fine when everything's spur of the moment, flying by the seat of your pants, and just react, respond, and get things done as you're presented with
One
it?
guess on that last one as to what the majority of the council is. we're very
totally
easygoing.
Cool with winging it. Yeah, I'm totally cool with winging it. I like a loose plan because the more you plan it out, the more you allow things to go wrong and you spaz. So I'm like, outline, please. Thank you.
Yeah. So basically, the chart is not. It lined up with me, and it became this idea that grew into something massive. It doesn't line up for everyone, though. So, it's not like that chart was designed to say that this is your personality type, and the only thing you will ever enjoy playing is a mercenary. That's
Right.
That's impossible. Any personality type could enjoy playing whatever. There's so many variables that go into what we enjoy, what role we enjoy. But that's just how I got on this track 6 years ago that led to, me choosing to use stats and charts to sort of explain to people why we do what we do.
Okay. So then what we're going to do is take kind of what you've known and that experience tonight and plug that in to our discussion that we're going to have tonight on stereotypes in gaming, because obviously everybody. So let me explain real quick where this came from for me. Is that I saw somebody, I forget who it was now, maybe Dr. SWTOR, you can jog my memory as to who it was, but somebody had said, women like to play healers because it's something about they have a nurturing. And that started this. Obviously,
yeah.
There's some passion involved in this, but it started this debate, and we went back and forth. And I thought to myself, you know what, this would make a great episode. Let's have a discussion about things that everybody kind of thinks, or folklore type of stuff. These assumptions that are out there about gamers and about SWTOR players, and then and see kind of how what you've studied speaks to that. Is it some of it true, or is it absolutely garbage in most cases?
As long as I get to defend my healer position, I'm fine.
We have female players on this in the discussion right now. So who plays healers?
I do.
But
Okay.
however, I have a good reason. It has nothing to do with my sex.
Okay.
Okay.
So what is it, if you don't mind sharing? That'll help me answer the question in a very
Diplomatic way.
personally relevant way.
Well, I'm a nurse, so
Okay.
So I do a healer.
Now, I relate to that. I'm a counselor. I think there might be something there, but that's more of an occupation-related reason for why we play these different things. So, oh man, can I make a chart for that while we're doing the stream? I probably can. So, I think that when it comes down to it, people play their roles for a lot of different reasons. And I remember having a day where I just wanted to let somebody have it. I saw that comment on Twitter, and I just started going in and seeing what charts can I create that even approach
charts, yes.
that even approach talking
Bring
about
out the
this.
charts.
Right, and because I was curious, people say things all the time in games like, "Oh, you do this only because of that. It's like a way to show that I'm smarter than you. I figured you out. You're not special.
Right. There's
And-
elitism.
Yeah,
Definitely.
reading that Twitter comment about made me flip my lid. I was like, that has nothing to do with it. Oh my gosh, like I about lost it because this was my first MMO and I was terrified. Hundreds of people playing the game. A guy was trying to help me, and I was like, "What's the one where I don't have to charge in and be leading anything?" And he's like, "Well, you want a support role? You want DPS or heals?" I'm like, "Okay." And I was like, "I want to be a Sith. I want to shoot lightning." And he's like, "Well, then you're gonna be a Sork." And I'm like, "Excellent." So DPS, what am I looking at here? And he explains the roles, and I'm like, so healer means I have to just keep people alive. I don't have to interrupt anything. I don't have to go anywhere. I just have to just not stand stupid and heal. And he goes, yeah. I'm like, I'm going to be a healer. And
Done.
he's like, okay.
And then you saw the Kefis fight. Oh yeah, by the way, you got to interrupt.
Okay,
Yeah, we're
I
gonna
didn't
put
start
you
doing
on.
hard mode.
We need you to
I
click
didn't
this
start doing
monitor.
hard mode, and I didn't start doing hard mode until the level cap raised to 55, so I had time to adjust. But that's why I became a healer, because I was scared. I'd never done an MMO for more than a month, and I was like, okay, the least scary thing. There was all these bars and buttons, and I had to gear, and I had to remember willpower was a stat, and no. That's why I chose a healer,
Willpower.
because it was the least amount of effort for me to put in so I could learn the game at my pace without high pressure. And that is why I chose a healer. So when they said, because they're female, I was like, oh, no, you didn't. Okay, now you can talk, and that's my position.
All right.
Now it's all
Yes.
good.
So I think we can continue down this line in the deliberation part. So how about we start going over those straw polls so we can get there a little bit faster.
Yes, the question has been sent to chat, so everybody feel free to answer
Excellent.
with your A, B, C, or D. I believe D is the.
So I'll read it, at least for those who are not in chat. What gamer stereotypes do you think are the most overplayed or inaccurate? Is the poll question for this week. Choice number 1 is gender-based assumptions, male or female. The unsuccessful trope, such as low intelligence, lack jobs, successful relationships, and so on. C would be lacking social skills, or D, we're all addicted. And the examples are because our time investment, lack of diverse interests, and so on.
Okay,
those are your
so
four.
before we go any further, Dr. SWTOR, would you like to basically kind of outline or maybe flesh out just a little bit what each of those options are? So if we talk about gender-based assumptions, what would that be about?
Okay, so that's basically what we were just talking about. Is you're a male, so you play this way. You're a female, so you play this way. Especially in our, I was just doing a raid last week with my group. I don't remember what day, but it just came up that, doing anything in the field of gaming as a female has all kinds of things you have to think about beyond what I have to think about. And even doing dailies one morning last week, I was playing one of my more attractive characters and just going on Fleet to go get my crafting schematics, and I started getting hit on, and I was
Nice.
just like, oh my gosh, like, I don't think that has ever happened to me when I'm just playing a tune
Right,
that looks
and you
like me.
I'm pixels.
Right.
This is not real, guys.
But
And they-
baby, those pixels are steamy.
I know that they asked me several times if I was interested in talking to them.
Do you know what I found kills that though? Whenever somebody tries that, just say I'm a.
I'm a 600-pound
I'm a
man named
dude.
Gary, and I'm lonely. That's been my thing for about seven and
That'll
a
do
half
it.
years now.
But so I think that, that comment, such as what was on Twitter, that, you are healing because you're a woman and you have nurturing instincts. So that just diminishes what it means to be a female, what it means to be a healer, what it means to have nurturing instincts, as if males don't have any of that going on at all.
True.
Or as though healing had anything
as
to
healing-
do with nurturing.
Exactly, right? So a lot of people, I think, heal in the weeks since that Twitter morning happened they've reached out to me and said they heal because they can do it and their team needs competent people to do it. So it's not necessarily because I woke up one morning and realized my true calling was to keep the bars
Was
red.
to nurture.
I heal in three NIM groups, and by the time you get done with that, you're not feeling nurturing. You're like, I need a drink. This is ridiculous. And you're like, oh my gosh, I can't do it one more time. Then you're like, okay, next pull. Here we go. Yeah.
So I have created some
I just
charts.
yell, "Don't stand in stupid" every time I have to heal.
Uh-huh.
You died because you were standing in stupid. No,
Well, I
it's
mean-
not my fault. You died because you're standing in stupid. Learn to move,
Remember
moron.
that. Remember
Right.
that in a
Stop
an
fluffing
hour
your
from
numbers.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, when you're getting into the harder content, you only have a certain number of polls that you can do in the time you've set up to play. So you kind of want to let the person pay for incompetence, but you know that's going to cause a wipe. So
So you
you're
have
kind
to
of like,
offset their terribleness with your awesomeness.
So that actually has stopped you. I actually told them, listen, you're not getting any more heals from me. And then when they die and they get pissed off, I say, hey, you brought it on yourself. Yeah,
Yeah.
you wiped the whole group. Congratulations.
right. So I
Therein
mean,
is why Redna is not allowed to heal in our group. Just
so from a conditioning perspective, the healer has the ability to break the chain of the action and the consequence for the other players. So
Bad when it's a tank too, that you're not
sure,
healing.
right. So a tank not knowing the mechanic in certain fights on certain difficulties, the healer can completely make that a non-factor and the boss still goes down and everyone moves forward with the raid feeling like they did their job right. Which collectively as a team, yes, you did, but sometimes you beat a boss with the team you're in, but if you're in a pickup group because you never learned how to do your eighth of the job correctly, now suddenly like, what's wrong? I can't kill the underlurker. I kill him all the time. And you know, sometimes it's other people and sometimes it's you.
Right.
The healer has like the magic eraser that makes you unsure how good you are.
If they're good.
Right. If they're
Sometimes they
good,
make
right.
you
So
shine
they-
because you.
That
That's
whole
true.
Pickup groups are a whole other show.
Yes.
So maybe we should move on to the
Okay.
second
Yeah. So
question,
yeah,
the second answer.
the unsuccessful trope, low intelligence or lacking a job or successful relationships. What's that?
It's the South Park episode on World of Warcraft.
Okay.
So it's that cartoon image of a person who clearly has not left the room and doesn't seem to care about hygiene, and so when you don't care about that, you tend to not have a job or interact with people. And the problem with that image, you know, South Park does a really good job of bringing things into the consciousness but not giving people a very accurate way of thinking about it. So
well, it is a cartoon.
oh sure, you know, it's made for enjoyment and shock value, and that's fine, but I have to unwire some of the beliefs that episodes like that cause, especially when I'm
Right.
working with adolescents or young adults and their parents. You know, there's this whole, you know, they don't have friends and
All
or
they
they're
do
not
is game all day. They don't have any friends. So you're
Yeah,
dealing
and-
with these
yes,
stereotypes all
Sakura,
the
you're
time.
not really my
all
friend.
the time. Even with my colleagues
game.
that have their graduate degrees in mental health, you know, there's this whole, you know, this person has completely abandoned their life and is not talking to anyone. And me as a gamer and also an educated person in social sciences, I'm thinking, wait. So what are they playing? What activity are they doing in their game? Are they using Discord or TeamSpeak? You know, who's organizing all of that? I had a person in the past that I was working with very closely for a number of months, and he was organizing guilds in 3 different MMO games that were all organized around RP styles of play. And he was investing hours and hours, and he was like he was like the every organizer, and just had built his social circle up to
You built an empire.
hundreds
Right.
of people across 3 games. And so the notion that he doesn't know how to talk to people is ridiculous. But then the question then becomes, why can't you overcome some of these things that are holding back, like a debuff on your real life?
I love that.
I like
Yeah.
that. That's good.
So
You're
yeah,
debuffing
so-
my life, Mom.
So
If my
you
son
know,
ever says that, though, he's getting unplugged.
okay, right, but the thing is that the majority of people in SWTOR particularly are actually very competent, very well educated. By the way, in my dissertation data pool, there were only a few people with doctorate degrees, but none of them were DPS focused people. So sorry, burn. But um, but anyway, the percentage of graduate degrees in the SWTOR population is actually better than the percentage of graduate degrees in the general population. So, what does that say to this misnomer that's targeted by option B in this poll? It's pretty flawed. It's just a emotional gut assumption that people have, and it feels right, so we move forward thinking about it. But the tasks that we do are harder than most professional group tasks that our manager or boss are going to hand down to us. Like nightmare raids are, from a team perspective, are harder than what we do at work because we truly have to rely on other people or we're stuck for hours. Whereas in work tasks, the bar is lower of difficulty. You generally expect if you put the work in, you will succeed and put something together.
And if someone else doesn't, you can actually take it over and get it done.
Yeah, right, because the barrier for success is lower in those kinds of things than what we deal with. So video games train our brains to do really neat things in terms of task completion. And that pushes us to kind of have resilience sometimes that other people don't tend to have. We give up maybe less often, but we have to be focused on what the true goal is. So some people do focus more on the games, and that true goal is more important than filling out a job application or getting outside the house or doing things.
But that's
the people,
not the majority.
right, the people I play with, we all have jobs. We all say it's too late to be playing, and we go to sleep and we wake up to do it again tomorrow. not SWTOR the job.
Hey, for the unsuccessful trope, particularly in relation to successful relationships, I am allowing anybody to use me as a refuting of that. The guy that played a MMO and went to a community cantina and has now married the woman he met there and had a child.
It actually
I
works.
think that's fairly successful.
Yeah, no
It
kidding.
shut my whole
my
family out.
I met my husband in the Guild, The Cake is a Lie, on Shadowlands. So,
Yeah.
what?
So yeah, my wife wasn't a gamer before we got married. When we did, she started playing SWTOR, and it's something that we do now that's very marriage building. So I mean, like it's interesting how these
Now you need to do ops with her, and that will stress test those balls.
No, that's okay.
Every time I've been PvPing lately, I see her on Fleet, and I'm like, hello, hey! And I'm on a bunch of different tunes, like dancing with her, and she's just like, is this magic? Yes. How did you know?
So we also just to bring it back around to the poll again.
Yeah.
You also touched on the final one, which is that we're all addicted.
Oh, right.
Pretty much.
So just to hang on one more second, my wife is a main DPS in my raid team. So
mine was main DPS too.
Okay.
It's better for me to heal when she's a DPS, I think, but I've been DPSing for about a month now. And it just feels bad being in that situation where I have to watch her die because I have to keep the tanks alive.
You have to choose the tank over your life.
Do I choose the tank or the couch?
But I try to be good enough at my job to not let that happen and just keep.
Dude, my husband was a healer, so we just healed together.
Yeah. So going back to the what was option D? I'm sorry.
It was that we're all addicted.
Right, that's a big thing too. So how do we measure addiction? A lot of people think it's number of hours, and we can all just go on our main tune and type in /played and then think, how is that even possible?
That's a good idea. I should do that.
Yeah.
You probably shouldn't. You probably don't want to.
6.5 years.
My name Sork. She was my first tune. I bet it's an astronomical number.
Right. So I did that a couple months back because I didn't even know that was a thing. And I thought to myself, I saw it, I went, huh, okay. And then I just reminded myself, but I finished my dissertation during all that. So, it's not really about time investment because I've worked with people in a therapeutic capacity that have played 60 or 90 or over 100 hours in a week. And at some point, the balance in their life starts to flip where there's not a whole lot being accomplished in these other life areas. I have this nice worksheet I give them that has 12 different life areas, and it's a circle. It's striated. So each area exits from the center and goes outward. And so if you had 120 points, you could give yourself a 10 in every category. That's not how life works. It's kind of like skill points. So since they play video games so much, I say, fill in this chart, tell me who you are, you have 60 points. So you have enough to give yourself a 5 in every category, but I'm betting you prioritize certain things in life over others. So if you spend 10 points on a certain category, that reduces the max of one category down to 2, or it makes it so you have to remove 1 point from several different categories. And that lets me see who they are and what's important to them. It also puts in a context where now they are the character and they are assigning their skill points to actual life. So the video games become a compartment in their life as opposed to
having KOTOR flashbacks.
Okay, so we're going to reduce the
KOTOR.
interaction with people. We're going to... That's awesome.
Right. Yeah, so KOTOR actually is a very important game to me. And that actually is what gave me the idea to start doing this in my therapy sessions, is that I felt like it was a very relatable way to break through the whole, like, video games don't teach you anything about life, and say, well, actually it does. We just have to change the way we think about it a little bit. So I'm going to spend time listening to you talk about your game. It's a great thing. I want to hear what it does for you. I want to hear the people it puts you in connection with and what you're able to accomplish, and have that self-esteem like I beat this, or I enjoyed this. But then we're going to spend some time talking about these other things. And I think that the majority of people who play games don't even need that. I think that it's an escape, or it's a refreshing part of their day. And they're never going to end up talking to me because of this. They might end up on Discord, and I might, like, do a raid with them. But, I'm not going to end up counseling 99% of the people who play MMORPGs.
Right.
Is that because we're so successful?
Possibly. I mean, I did some charts while we were talking because I wanted to see if I could, and I totally can. And
how cool is that?
Yeah, and I just want to say that most of the occupations that there are tend to have a heavy focus on, playing DPS or playing a certain amount of time. Let me find the one that's about time investment and occupation. I think that we get into this situation where we start thinking, oh, people are playing too much, they can't possibly be successful. But if we spend 8 to 10 hours of our day doing work stuff, and we just log in 2 hours a night, then by the end of the week, we've played 10 to 14, 16 hours if we do it every single night. And that's the same amount of time that most people watch Netflix. Or
Agreed.
I have known many kids who are brought to treatment with me because, like, they find me online, like, oh, he researched video game addiction, and
Fix my kid.
And then with, I get to know the kid, I get to know the parent, and then I spring one of my favorite questions is, how does your time on Netflix compare to your kid's time on the PS4? And it just, like, it's such a nice moment when everyone's in the room
Yes.
trying to be productive. Because it's not just about hours, it's just you're doing a thing that I don't endorse.
It could totally be about hours, though, if they're competing for the same television screen. Like, get off that! I want to watch more Netflix.
Which
Well,
is why
I
PC
mean,
games are great.
this is that area which just really makes me mad, is that spending hours and hours and hours watching Netflix, binge watching Netflix,
Right.
is considerably more socially acceptable than doing the same thing
It is.
in video
It is.
games.
That's
Yeah.
the argument I
Especially
had with my
depending on
parents.
your age, but I don't
Right.
want to get all salty about that. Okay, well, let's talk about that a little bit more. I'll go over the results, and we can find out what the chat results are, and then we'll continue that down in the deliberation section, if that's okay with everybody.
Sounds good to me.
Perfect.
Sounds great.
So, Sakari, did we have results from chat?
Yes, chat, and we'll talk about kind of how they compare it once. But it looks like the unsuccessful trope was it tied with lacking social skills. So basically, that gamers are bums and that we don't have friends is what won among chat. No, I don't think anything else got a score. So
Really? Okay. Well, that kind of models the results for the poll. So if you could, I don't know if that's up yet or not,
yes.
Sakai, but so out of 107 votes, 39% voted for the unsuccessful trope. And again, remember, this is what you think are more overplayed or inaccurate. So unsuccessful trope, which we've already heard from Dr. SWTOR that his data suggested that was not true, at least for this game. Or at least, I guess, from an education standpoint.
Yeah.
Gender-based assumptions was second with 25% of the votes. Lacking social skills was third at 19% of the vote. And then last was we're all addicted was 17% of the vote.
Okay. Now, I just want to comment that those four options, they're all tropes or belief systems that exist, right? So it's important to focus on which one is the most overplayed. That's what we're trying to figure out here is, you pull a random person on the street, what are most gamers like? All four of those could show up, and even some that kind of branch off of them.
Right. Or yeah, like sub ones.
I had never heard the gender-based one, like females are healers, until that tweet that morning, and that's what got me all like, oh no you didn't, because I'd never heard that before. I was like, I've dealt with sexism my entire life. I live in the Midwest, like smack dab in the Midwest. I've dealt with sexism my entire life, and I'd never heard that, and that just brought up some stuff that I obviously haven't gotten over yet.
I would counter that it's not. I wouldn't think it's necessarily sexist, so much as somebody's observing anecdotally something and trying to come up with an explanation for it. Now, maybe it's sexist in that it pigeonholes.
Isn't that where a
everybody.
lot of sexism and racism comes from?
That's how discrimination starts.
So, yeah. But I don't necessarily. I don't think it's necessary. I think you are interpreting. Let me say it this way. I think you are interpreting it with a whole lot more malice than it was necessarily intended. Does that sound fair?
But you can't read intent in a text. So, like, when someone tweets something, unless they put all the little emojis to tell you what they're really feeling, it could be the most sexist thing they've ever said, but you wouldn't know it because you're just reading it bland. Or it could be a very mild thing, and they're just mentioning it offhandedly, like, oh, I've noticed, blah, 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 but
you don't need to be malicious to be sexist either.
I think PvP actually proves you can read some into text.
Right, but I meant like you can't read true intent.
Not like if you use the /mute command.
Right.
Okay. I accidentally tick my mother off all the time in text, and I'm like, what? So I'm just saying, like, you can read some intent, but you can't read like 100% of the intent in a text comment.
And actually, to Magic's point, like, to be frank, I was completely unaware until I saw that and I had to ask around and look around and even do some Google searching to find out what gender-based assumptions were a part of the community, because it's not something I've confronted,
Cool.
And even the unsuccessful trope, I feel like that's something that, for me anyway, and this is totally my personal take on it, but for me, and I was mentioning this to Elise before the show, that trope feels more like an antiquated trope, something of a like the older generation might still hold it, but it's not something that I feel is as it's not a narrative that's being propagated as strongly, because such a huge portion of the population nowadays really do have embraced video games. It's become a mainstream entertainment factor, right? Like the vast majority of people under 50, I would expect that it's more than 50% have or do play video games on some level, be it on their phone, be it on a console, or be it on a PC, with some frequency.
But I think people do not claim phone games. They're like, oh, I'm not a gamer, and then they spend like 10 hours on their phone playing games, but they don't consider it the same.
That's absolutely true.
And whereas I do think like a more modern and current one actually, I thought of one as we were sitting here talking that we left off of this poll that would be politically relevant, is that it makes gamers are more violent because they play these violent video games, right? But the addiction one too is, I think, something that a lot of people are more concerned about now, because there are certain mechanics that are being incorporated into the video games that kind of feed off of that addictive nature. But I don't know how actually realistic it is to consider something, someone actually addicted. Like, to me, that's more a narrative of fear and not one that might play out as widespread as people are afraid of.
Okay, so before we go any further, I would like to see, because we have maybe 4 of those different broadly defined assumptions or overplayed inaccurate stereotypes defined here. And Redden adds a good 5th one that I'd like to hear what Dr. SWTOR has to say to that as well, and that is gamers are violent. They're desensitized to violence. So, and we're running out of time right now, so I'd like, if it's okay with the other council members, I propose hereby that we allow him to speak to each of those stereotypes with what he's found in his studies. Like what does the data say? And what can you extrapolate from that maybe that speaks to each of those? Are they accurate? Are they inaccurate? Are they terrible? What would you have to say to that?
So I want to counter that first with some other stats that kind of highlight my point here, and that is that people who watch the Super Bowl get arrested for domestic violence more often. And so when you say something like that, you're like, whoa, I watched the Super Bowl. I haven't been arrested for domestic violence. However, that's a very bad night for domestic violence calls. And can anyone figure out or want to venture as to why that is?
Beer,
right?
Cheerleaders being zoomed in on the screen, nip slips happening, all the guys go, woohoo!
Okay, so you get all that stuff, and especially the alcohol, and then boom, you have people who, they are not in control of their mental process,
right?
And they do things that are illegal, offensive to other people, and they get arrested. So let's zero back in on the video game players are more violent. Okay. I think that I have played a lot of video games in my life. I learned very early in life that as long as I'm doing okay in school, I pretty much can play games as a leisure activity, to a reasonable level as much as I want. And it resulted in me doing a dissertation on video games. And I'm not very violent at all. I can't even swear at the video game when I do something stupid and die.
Oh, come on, but you sound so aggressive.
Redden can't play anybody dark side, so it's cool.
So
dude, there's a reason why the Inquisitor was my last class, because the racism was so offensive to me.
Oh, man. So here's the thing. Do people who play video games end up getting headlines for doing violent things? Yes. Why is that? Because when people involved in the media and publishing those stories look at it, they're trying to infer causation and also get clicks and views. And so if you're trying to cater to an audience of age 45 and up who did not have video games, no, not 45, 55 and up. Let's do 55 and up. Who didn't
have that number increase.
Right here, so
so let's say you're older but also did not grow up with video games being an intimate part of your life.
You need to be 55 because
there we go.
With Pong. So.
Okay. All right. So if we're counting Pong, we have to go a little bit farther.
I played Snake on the Nokia.
You're trying to get discussing Dig Dug earlier.
You're trying to
get. I love that game.
Dig Dug was the
sorry, we're not trying to derail for Dr. SWTOR.
You're trying to get awareness and clicks and publicity from that demographic. So you want to say something big and bold. Call of Duty caused this person to shoot up a school. And for people who don't understand how games work, it's like, oh my gosh, that makes sense. They're in the screen. They must be the person. They're getting all this target practice. They know what guns are. And
because that controller is the same as a 30-06.
Exactly. Right. And so all of the other factors like access to a real weapon, understanding how to fire it and reload it, understanding how to aim with enough accuracy to actually end somebody's life.
Control
all
recoil.
Of those,
yeah, no kidding.
All those factors that have nothing to do with how this feels. I just made a controller motion with my thumbs for people who are listening to this. It's so lost because the idea of what a video game actually is, it wasn't there to begin with the people you're trying to win over with that argument. Presidents, Congress people, senators, and it's just it's taken the World Health Organization like 30 years too long to understand that video game disorder might be a thing, because they're just looking for drugs as an addiction. So, we're at
but
this...
isn't that kind of the case? Like, I mean, like, say gambling as an addiction.
Yes.
It would take them a long time to acknowledge any of that because they can't point to a biological or a chemical source, like a consumption of a chemical type source, rather than acknowledging that certain personality types have...
You can be addicted to literally anything,
Right.
especially if you have an addictive personality.
Right, and so... Go ahead.
And also, you've also got how slow people were to looking at good, bad for loot boxes and how that acts in the game. It took them a really long time to figure that out.
We do have an episode about loot boxes and gamblings. If you'd like to check that out, people, just saying.
Also, I had a presentation in February, and I have another one coming up in October where I talk specifically about RNG in video games, how it creates a gambling-like response in people. And, I'm probably one of the handful of people in this field that can speak to that at that level, because it's so unknown to the people doing the research that it just slips under the surface in the video game industry. It pushes sales. It's good for the financial charts of the game. So it's stupid not to have it. But unfortunately, some games are too high profile. Battlefront 2, and so
FIFA, Ultimate Team.
Right. Yeah, but FIFA can get away with it for some reason because there's no Star Wars license on it.
I know.
So, the whole thing that happened with Battlefront 2, I find ridiculous unless we're going to feel that way about every game.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I will say, though, wasn't it completely, like, the only way to progress was through those boxes? Like, that's what the biggest uproar was about. Not just the gambling thing, but, it blocked your progress.
It was
if
pay
you
to
were
win.
Forced to, yeah.
If you were lucky enough to get
so you spend $60
drops,
or whatever, and then you spend another $200 to get to where you're... Yeah, okay. See, that's where I was like, no.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm getting a little bit off topic because that's also a true passion of mine. But, just the issue with violence in video games is that the people who are inferring that truth and propagating it and keeping it a live part of the zeitgeist of media, they don't even understand what they're talking about. I think video game...
But there was also the similar conversations back in the day when books became more explicit and people were like novels. The reason why novels were not regarded as highly as short form was because people were getting too invested. Or D&D back in the day. Oh, they're getting so invested that, they're killing themselves because their character dies or this sort of stuff. It's just...
What people
ignorant
they fear
judgment
what they don't
of
know.
an entertainment form that they're uninformed about. Yeah.
One of my idols in research is a researcher named Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. He has a really hard name to spell, but I have read some books from him that are about the principle psychological flow, and it put me on this idea. Flow is like that feeling you get when you're playing the MMO where you're not thinking about your role or what buttons you push. It's just coming through your fingers and you're doing it and the fight ends and, like you were the character. You get that feeling when you're completely involved in rock climbing, chess, ballet, piano, driving. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so when people are zeroing in on video games or the D&D of, 3 decades or 4 decades ago, or, just having the internet in your house or reading a book, I always ask... Sure, yeah. I ask the person who's afraid of the new phenomenon, and I ask them, would you feel this way about your kid playing, 8 hours a day, playing the piano 8 hours a day? Or playing drums or, other things that are generally not, oh, you're doing that too much. And generally that is another icebreaker where the veil is lifted and people are starting to see it at, oh my gosh. So, if my kid was trying to talk about, I played guitar for this number of hours, I practiced this song, I almost made it through, I would listen and I'd be like, good job. But it's like, I played for 2 hours with my friends in Colorado, Idaho, and Florida, and we beat this boss we never beat. Oh, shut up. Did you mow the lawn today? So it's sort of that thing where we have to chip away, and the things that decide how we're supposed to think, if we're not thinking for ourselves, they will eventually get there, just 20 or 30 years too late.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, actually, I used to get grounded from books. So
Really?
it wasn't a big surprise. Yes,
Excellent.
my dad would get really frustrated because I would do my chores and stuff, and then I'd go to my room and I'd read, and I just did that for hours and hours all the time. I have a massive collection of books, and I never throw away a book unless it's absolute smut. But I have so many books, and I would read those books all the time, and it was because I was an only child, so I was very much.
My mom was the exact opposite.
I very
was
much.
a hyperactive child, and the only way she could get me to sit still is to put a book in my hands.
Well, I was very much the quiet type. Like, my parents traveled most of my childhood, so I would sit in the back seat and read a book. So then when we were home, what did I do? I would read a book. And so when I actually started playing video games, I'd play for like an hour and be done. I'd go outside or I'd go read a book or whatever. I didn't start really playing video games till I was about 17, 18 years old. When I really got into video games, my parents would freak out about that too. And I'm like, well, if it was a book, you would ground me from books. So if I sat down and watched,
Right.
Star Trek with my dad for 3 hours, it'd be fine. But because I'm playing a video game, it's the end of the world. Or I'm reading a book, it's a Star Wars book.
What
It's the end of the world.
strikes me in all of this is just how selective we are as human beings, right? Everything I do is healthy. Everything you do is not. So
Yeah.
if you do too much of something I disapprove of, like where you're spending too much time, that's unhealthy, you're addicted. But then, and I think that's half of what's happening with it. We're talking about, Dr. SWTOR lifting the veil, is that when you actually compare people's habits together, hold on, maybe I'm spending an unhealthy amount of time watching Netflix or something like that, and maybe I should go get out and mow the lawn. So,
So I have two questions. We don't have very much time at all, but just really quick, do you have any suggestions on how we can? Because I see video games following us generationally, right? Especially those of us who are playing them now. We're going to get older, and theoretically, we won't stop playing them even when we're 60 or 70. So with
For the same reason I'm not going to quit reading books or
right, exactly. Yes, but there are some that think you're supposed to grow out of that. That's on the list.
get out of my
Anyway,
stronghold, you kids.
My dad constantly
So,
quotes the Bible to leave things, you're not a child anymore, so their childish things, leave them behind. I'm like, okay, Dad, you quit binge watching X-Files then, okay?
So, what is there anything on these four stereotypes that perhaps could be turned into a plus instead of a detriment?
Sure. I think that it's important for people to put the game into a personal space where it lets you be the best version of yourself. And that doesn't mean everyone who plays the game is going to beat, every operation and like flashpoints and do their weekly PvP in 10 matches because they won all of them. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not worried about that. That's going to take care of itself. The game should not be detracting from who you are as a person, the energy that you're able to share with other people, and the things that you're able to do during the time where you're logged in and when you're logged out. So I think that if you're taking care of that, then you're going to overcome so many of these stereotypes. Like you can be a female healer or a tank or a DPS, and you might choose that because of the same reason 100,000 people chose that combination, but that's the combination that works for you. And so some angry butthurt person on Twitter, their opinion about you doesn't matter at that point because you're being true to yourself. And then if you're putting the game into a place where it lets you be the best version of you, you're going to find those opportunities in real life, like in the real life that we walk around with our feet and like breathe air outside of our house and inside of our house. You'll
The
be
graphics
able
were
to...
terrible, everybody. I tried it once. Sorry.
Most annoying
No,
meme I've ever seen.
Wasn't it like the graphics are awesome, but the story was terrible? Sorry, I messed that one up.
Yeah.
No, it's fine.
No, that was the
So-
worst meme. I get it.
You will overcome the stereotypes that we're unsuccessful and we play too much. And there might be weeks where you can play 50 hours and it doesn't affect anything in your life negatively. And then there's other weeks where, oh man, I didn't even log in, like except for 2 hours, and that's fine too. So, as long as we don't look at it like it's a quota where, we're clocking in, You know, but even with work, like real jobs, we clock in at times when we don't want to. Most of us anyway. So, you know, it's sort of about having realistic understandings of what this game is for you, and you know, being true to yourself.
Yes, indeed.
I do want to say though, in Overwatch, when a Korean team queues in, I get nervous. I'm just saying.
I don't
Just
care
saying.
because see,
Okay,
I
moving on.
recently started playing Overwatch and I started playing Mercy, but not because I'm female, but because it's the only role I knew I could play definitively without letting my team down. Because I actually have a team from one of my guilds here in SWTOR, okay? But I just recently started playing Moira. I killed quite a few people. Thank you. 26 executions. That was my second play with her.
I just wanted to share my theory because I know we need to wrap this up soon. But there was one stereotype that you guys mentioned, well, not on the show, but that was in our notes that I wanted to bring up, that apparently gamers are fat. Now, I just want to say this is the one thing that what's that show with the cartoon that's offensive?
South Park?
South Park?
Yeah, South Park. I watched that episode. It's like the only episode I ever watched. And I loved it, except for the fact that it's completely inappropriate. First of all, I'm not obese by any stretch of the imagination. And truly die-hard, successful gamers that are like as intense as all of that, they're not fat because they aren't taking enough time to eat. They're wasting away.
Ain't that true? Yeah.
If you're taking that much time to eat, then you're not a real gamer. And that's all I'm going to say.
I actually have not ate today.
Eating the
except for
cheesy
two
poops
gummy
while you
worms.
play.
So I agree with that.
Dr. SWTOR, do you have any last final thoughts that you'd like to share with us?
No, I mean, we really did dive pretty deep into all four categories, and you know, all the charts that I had, I didn't even use them because everything's so compelling conversationally. So,
Well, we can add them to the show notes.
Absolutely. What I will say is, send me anything that you'd
I'd
like to do,
post.
that you'd like us to share, and just send it to me, and I'll make sure that they get included.
Including your socials, because people want to know if they can watch you stream.
Of course
Yes.
you can. I'd love for you to come by. So, my Twitch channel is twitch.tv/Dr. SWTOR, and on Twitter I'm at Dr. SWTOR, and those are really the best two ways to reach me, unless I get to meet you and you're in my Discord. So.
Now, what we want to do is provide Dr. SWTOR like a big bump in follows here. And we've got a bunch of people watching right now. So as soon as we wrap the show up, go to twitch.tv. In fact, the link has been shared by Redna. Thank you, sir. Twitch.tv/Dr. SWTOR. Give him a follow. So we want to send a bunch of people over there to check your channel out as well. Sorry, Is there anything else that you wanted to say besides the socials?
That Magic is your favorite council member. That's okay. We know.
So on Twitch, just what I generally try to do is I try to stream when I'm doing group content, and also I have this thing I'm putting together called SWTOR Psych Talk. The name might change, but basically the idea is to play one class or two classes at a time with a friend, Marcus from Working Class Nerds, and we're just actually treating the characters like a case study and trying to see if there actually are a couple different personality types attached to the conversational choices BioWare gave us to work with. So instead of treating the player, my friend, like the character who has a personality, I'm trying to see what personalities are possible when you play a smuggler, a trooper, and all the way down the list. So if you think that could be interesting, we're working on it, and it's something I'm very excited to pour more time into.
That is really cool.
That sounds really
That sounds
cool.
great.
Fun experiment. All right, I just want to make sure.
I don't know what mine would be like at all. I don't know.
All those Imperial flags flying in the background there. I do want to make sure that everybody is aware. Right now, we are making some transitions in our hosting. So our email address, anyone who wants to email us for any reason, is out of commission, as is our website. We're just changing hosting services, and things are going to get reposted. So for now, things are down. Just a heads up on all of that. We will, when in the next episode after things come back up, make sure that you are aware that everything is back up again. But just a heads up for now. I just want to make sure that we get that information out there. Thank you. Magic.
Is it my turn? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you to everybody who showed up to watch us on the council and to support Dr. SWTOR. We thank you so much. Thank you for the people who participated in chat, even the lurkers who only voted and the lurkers who didn't. The haters on Reddit, we love you guys. Thank you so much. Keep the hate coming.
There's a stereotype
Let the hate
there.
flow. But most of all, thank you to everybody who downloads the podcast. Our downloads keep just shooting up their numbers, and we appreciate it greatly. You guys are all awesome, and gals, and I'm not touching anything else in between there. Thank you so much. We appreciate you all. Thank you.
And that brings us to the end of the episode. The council is adjourned. If you'd like to reach us, you can find Elise on Twitter at abrown35, Magic Ace at the Magic Ace, me at R3DM4, and Sakari at I am Sakari. Don't forget to follow us on social media, and don't forget our Patreon page at patreon.com/thecouncilswotor. That's it for this week, guys. Be careful not to choke on your aspirations.
I understand.
You are on this council, but we do not grant you the rank of master.
What? How can you do this? This is outrageous. It's unfair. How can you be on the council and not be a master?
Take a seat, young Skywalker.
Forgive me, Master.